We have Paddy Cullivan in studio with us, and you're invited to join him on a hilariously insightful journey through the history of partition and the Ireland of the future. I can't believe it's not Ireland. It's in the Ballot Arts Centre, Ballabafay, on the 18th of July. You love playing up here, Paddy, don't you?
I absolutely love playing up here. As you know, I got a house in Gorda Hork, so I came up here from my parents in Galway this morning, 7 a.m.
What was that journey like for you?
It was marvellous till I hit Ballybofey.
Right.
Well, Sligo, as always, should be. And the whole road between basically Sligo and Mayo should be got rid of entirely.
Yes.
I think Henry Grattan was the last guy that had anything to do with that road. But the Donegal roads are magnificent. Got to Ballybofey, bit of roadworks fine, and then I experienced for the very first time, Greg, the traffic lights at the roundabouts of Letterkenny. Look, all I'm saying now, someone outside told me, no, it's actually improved the traffic. So
who's that person?
I don't know, but all I know is that
dragged in here.
All I'm saying is that in the future United Ireland, I'm predicting we will not have traffic lights at roundabouts, because the idea of a traffic light at a roundabout defeats the idea of a roundabout. Am I wrong?
It seems strange, doesn't it? It's like adding spurs onto wheels and things.
Something like
wheels,
that.
It's perfect.
But if it's working, it's working, Greg. What can I say? It's the Donegal logic. I have no idea.
It's a lot of people don't believe it's working. We spent 15 odd million on that road. Did you notice as you come in the two lanes?
Yeah.
Where would an ambulance fire engine go?
Oh dear. Okay.
Do you know what I'm saying?
I didn't.
And this is how we do things. So apparently there's not an issue with it, right? Because it's fine. But then when the rally was on and the town was busy, they actually dedicated a separate road altogether for emergency vehicles.
Very good. Okay.
So for that 3 days, we required a separate road for emergency vehicles. But for the rest of the year, and it's bumper to bumper out to the Clanree, we don't need that kind of... it's crazy.
I promise you in 2032, Greg, this will all change.
Okay, right. Well, listen, this is why we are going to have to go to I Can't Believe It's Not Ireland in the Ballot Arts Centre. So what's the premise of this show?
The premise was I'd done my shows The Murder of Michael Collins and The Murder of Wolftown, and they were about the past and a kind of an unjust past. But as I was bringing Wolftown's story through the north last summer, it was amazing to me. It was very like what your previous speaker was talking about before the news, this kind of strange history where Catholics and Protestants actually fought on the same side in 1798. And a lot of Protestant and Presbyterian people were coming to my Wolftown show, even in predominantly Republican or Catholic areas. I think people are really interested in that history. And I just found this kind of positivity on the ground that if you listen to Stephen Nolan or you looked at Twitter from the north, you would find this terribly disagreeable thing. It would feel like 1991. But on the ground, every day, people were getting on, learning their 1798 history and thinking about the future, because obviously with Brexit, there's a lot of people in the north now thinking, look, what's the better future? So I decided to put a show together about the future. It's full of fun and full of humour, but I'd be as happy doing this in East Belfast as I would in West Belfast. It's a pay-end to Protestants and Presbyterians who they change their minds 4 times in Irish history, Greg. So I bring the show around that. I've got great songs and a lot of comedy and stuff. But, 1798, when Wolftown and the lads decided we needed a fairer society in Ireland. In 1834, when the Protestant and Presbyterian Church came together to fight against Home Rule and Rome Rule, they were right about that, by the way. That's what happened. So, they were right for the second time. Third time, 1913, when they go from being anti-Home Rule to wanting Home Rule for Ulster, which is fair enough. And then 2030, Saturday, June 1st, when a majority of people north and south vote for a united Ireland. And that's where we have this amazing coming together. And I bring the show from the story of partition right up to the future. And then I use AI imagery, comedy, music to bring you what this future Ireland's going to be like. It'll even have, would you believe, Greg, trains in Donegal?
No, it can't.
Oh, yes.
This is fantasy. Normally you've got your finger on the pulse, but surely not.
No. I'm going to... Greenways are fantastic. I love greenways. But who thought that we would go from train travel to walking? I think we're going to bring back the natural progression of man to bringing trains back to Donegal. And I not only that, but I foresee a high-speed rail that goes all the way around Ireland, circling Ireland between Derry, Letterkenny, down to Sligo. And you get between cities,
fantastic.
600 kilometres an hour. That's the speeds it got up to in Spain. And you can get from any town or any city in Ireland in 15 minutes.
Paddy, we have a presidential election coming up shortly. Would you consider it?
I'm still too young, Greg.
So when you talk about this having an appeal for a broad audience, right?
Yeah.
So that's people of different religious backgrounds, political backgrounds. Do you have to design it that way, or if you actually look at history, it kind of lends itself to being sort of open to all audiences?
Well, I learned a lot doing my histories, especially of the United Irishmen, and just, You know, I always think, especially with world conflicts today, you know, people are so on one side or the other. And I always found the greatest thing you can do is actually get into the mind of the person you traditionally feel is the enemy. And the more I looked at Protestants and Presbyterians and the Loyalist cause and the Unionist cause, I saw that many times it was the logical answer, not just for them, but for the whole country. And this isn't to besmirch or do down the Republican nationalist tradition, which I am from. But, you know, certainly when Republicanism and nationalism was tied to Catholicism, it scuppered it in a great way. And even before Republicanism came along, when the Catholics kept backing the Stuarts, even though the Stuarts kept letting them down, you know, and this Irish fascination with royalty, especially this Catholic fascination with royalty, which still happens, it just made me learn to get into the mind of the opposition and actually see their point of view. So the show comes at you from all point of views. It's going to annoy people in equal measure from both traditions, but it's also going to inspire people from both traditions.
But normal people can see that, the nuances and stuff. You know, we all work together, live together, and what have you, all from different backgrounds. And now we live in Ireland too, where there are more than just two backgrounds, aren't there? Or three. There are many.
Well, there's many, but again, like, it's funny. Like, I've done a lot of this based on hard study as well. So even though there's a lot of fun in the show, you'd be laughing. Well researched, But I've done, you know, Brendan O'Leary, the Aaron's Project. He's interviewed extensively unionists on what they want and what they don't want, and he found that in the South, it's much harder for people to give up things like the tricolour, the anthem, rejoining the Commonwealth. I even proposed the idea that we may have to, because our presidential elections, as you mentioned, are so horrific. They're so horrific and awful that we can only have them every 7 years. We might have to go back to the idea of an Irish king or queen. But it's an idea. Even though I'm a Republican, I would actually rather have a kind of powerless, symbolic royal family than ever go through another Irish presidential election where the entire cast of the Dragon's Den put themselves forward.
I can't remember. There's a word for accepting the worst of two bad things. I can't remember what the word is, but it sounds like that's the road you're going down.
Exactly.
But before we talk more about the show, you just mentioned there about division and how divided we're getting, and I don't know if it's. It worries me too, because Twitter now is really a place where either you go with one point of view or two people with very different points of view go to argue. And you talk about sort of radio shows that are designed and come at it from one angle to agitate and what have you.
Yes.
And I think as you see the media and contributors lean more to one side rather than saying, right, the future is broadcasting from a centre position, what happens is other commentators start popping up that are very much on the opposite. And we are heading into sort of an American-style system, I think, here.
I joke
is that worrying?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, as a younger man, I was quite left, you know, and now I describe myself as far centrist because I can't. Every time I look at a position I held 20 years ago, and every time I look at the opposite position, I see that the extremes aren't working. And
it's a horseshoe, isn't it? The two extremes are quite close together.
People thrive on all this stuff, and it's even the way the traditions in the North and here mimic each other.
Yes. When
it comes to even marching bands and all the rest of those things, and, you know, they have their bonfires in July, and the Republicans have it in August, and all the rest of it. And what I'm seeing is, what are the things that unite us? And funny enough, those things do. So when we build our new Parliament building in Athlone, for instance.
Oh, Athlone.
In Athlone, well, it has to be. How would you get Belfast and Dublin to agree where the capital will be? And what would Cork feel like? You know, if Cork had to go to Belfast, sure, they don't even know. They think Tipperary's Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
You know, so you'd have it in Athlone, and you have this beautiful circular Parliament building, which I've used AI to construct. And of course, what do we agree on as a shape for a building? Agreeing on the ancient circle. The ancient circle, which is the same as the circle that you see in the bonfire on the 12th of July. So we bring these things together. Our love for St. Patrick, he's a patron saint of both traditions. We have many different things we agree on. But one of the main things is the economy, that we need to get, you know, the Protestant idea was always pragmatic. The North in 1900 was Silicon Valley. It was the most successful economy in the world. But now Southern Ireland is, and I think pragmatic people will go, well, what's better, to stick with Britain where our fortunes are bad?
You're doing this thing again that you keep doing, aren't you? You're entertaining us with music, imagery, you know, media rich, the introduction of AI and comedy. But you're also talking about serious things. You're doing it again, aren't you? Where it's actually entertaining. It's entertaining, but you're learning something, and you're actually sort of. You know, even I think it was your last show. reviewing what we know about history and how we choose to remember history and what suits us and what we choose to ignore. But this is obviously more future based.
Well, you see, but also people are saying, well, this won't be for decades and won't happen for a while. But we got to talk about it really quickly, because things change real quickly, as you know, Greg. But as well as that, like once the British government says we're not funding it anymore, like literally, that's alarm bells, that's code red. And so we should be talking about a United Ireland straight away, and we should be discussing, okay, what's wrong with the tricolour? Well, for me, it's identity politics. We're dividing the country into two communities, green and orange, with the white in between. And as you said, we're many different communities now. Very different. And in fact, we need one symbol to get behind. One thing that all the people here, as Wolftown said, Protestant, Catholic and dissenter, under the common name of Irishmen. And that includes everybody else who's here as well. And you see, that's why you need a new flag. You need a new anthem, because our anthems are always about killing and murdering and bombing and blowing up, and one person wins and the other person loses. And I'm trying to get us, yes, I have turned into a hippie, Greg, you are right, because having studied history as extensively as I have, having kind of seen it from one point of view, I now go, okay, that's done. We've got to leave that behind, and we now have to find a brand new place where we all get on very, very well on this island. Do you know what I mean? Another thing I feel that as you say, we're getting involved because of Twitter, because of the internet. We can turn on American news in the morning and know so much. I always find it funny that papers like the Irish Times have an American correspondent. I'm going, you don't need one now, because I can turn on CNN or whatever else. And we're getting so involved in the rest of the world. And as Wolftown said, when he invented neutrality, he said, peace with all the world is our object and our interest. So when we take one side in a conflict or another, when we do all of these things, we're getting involved in something that isn't really our business. But secondly, we've stopped focusing on what's right around us. And I think you make the village right, you make the town right, you make the country right. And then, by all means, have an opinion about something else. But Ireland's what we've got to concentrate on. Our focus is all over the place at the moment, I think.
Yeah, and I've been saying this for the longest time on this programme, is really what will be decided, or if ever is a border poll, and you're of the view it's coming sooner than later, the issues that we will be voting on are really, well, where will hospital services be provided from? What are the tax implications? What will this do to our economy? What will we do with so many of the people in the north that are employed in the civil service? And so, I mean, I'm not saying that will be solely, but if you're in Cork or Galway or anywhere further south of Sligo, effectively, I don't think you're going to be too involved in the politics of it. No, or maybe I'm wrong.
No, but also, I mean, when Fitzgerald, Gar Fitzgerald's son, came out with that kind of scary thing, it was going to cost 20 billion a year for 20 years. Yeah, but our budget for 5.5 million people at the moment is 110 billion. So we spend 20 billion per million people.
But it didn't account for it didn't account for the positives of a United Ireland.
Yeah, but we're spending 20 billion a year in the south on 1 million people, right? We'd be spending 20 billion on 2 million people. So we're getting two for the price of one. As David McWilliams has said, it's actually a bargain to spend 20 billion. It's a twofer. Not only that, as Leo Varadkar said, and a great credit to him, he said if it costs us 2 to 3% of GDP to have a United Ireland, can you imagine the goodwill, the success, the tourism, the investment, the potential? America just going, yes, here's, we're going to put Google into Belfast. We're going to put Google everywhere. And like I say, if you build those things and use that Belfast engineering, that amazing Protestant engineering tradition, and Donegal, to get a fully cohesive transport system where it's 15 minutes from Derry to Sligo, or 15 minutes from 5 minutes from Letterkenny.
The world
to
will be our oyster.
The world is your oyster, and you're creating something like a Switzerland. And also, it's like there's a lot of fun throughout the thing. We go from very serious questions like that to which tato. Which tato, Greg? You know Southern tatoes.
It's only red and blue.
It's only red and blue.
You can stick the yellows.
Yeah, it's superior. But you see, when I say that in Belfast, there's almost a riot, and from nationalists. So you see, you have to be careful. And these are the things we have a look at. And that's why I'm using AI to envision these things. It's amazing. You put in something, because everyone's scared of AI. And I'm going, yeah. But AI is just a tool, like the Gutenberg press. If you have a really good idea and you say, well, I'd like to see what a high-speed rail in Donegal would look like, and it gives it to you, and you're there. And I'm a great believer in Beyonce's ethos. If you can see it, you can be it. And so all of these things are in the show, and it's a lot. I'm so glad to be part of the Erigol Festival again, because I haven't been for about 4 or 5 years since COVID. And I just want to be, I want to kind of bring this hopeful vision, because anyone who's come to see the show, they say they walk out in a high. Because it's funny enough, from hanging around with all these Presbyterians and Protestants, I've kind of turned into a bit of an evangelical preacher, you know?
Where's the capital? Sorry, it's not Athlone.
It is Athlone, yes.
So the capital would be Athlone as well as the seats of power.
Yeah, seat of power, and yes, it would. And it means you're equidistant from Belfast to Cork. You see, Leinster House is not a proper Parliament building. Stormont is. And of course, they could argue, well, we're going to have the Parliament here then, in a purpose-built place on its own grounds. And we're going to have to go, well, no, actually, because poor Corkonians couldn't make the 6-hour train ride.
Centre Parks. It's right smack bang in the middle of everything.
Centre Parks is all right, but we're on the Shannon. It's glorious. And Athlone needs a bit of a boost. Come on, Greg. But
what else do you talk about in it? Because as I say, by the way, if you haven't seen one of Paddy's shows, you really are in for a treat. In Ballinabuffet on the 8th of July. I've sort 18th. of been, 18th of July. I've been sort of throwing different things in here that aren't even really necessarily the subject of the show, because Paddy is just interested in his opinions on certain things as well. But before we go, I'll give you an opportunity, and I want you to sort of talk through the show sort of in a run, so to speak. But there's a funny line here. Unionist colony in the south discover the imperial joys of the Royal Dublin, which you referenced. Southerners discover the ancient landscapes of Ulster beyond the retail outlets of Newry and Titanic in Belfast. And there's like a real truth to that, if you know what I mean. Like, I'm probably going to go into the north, I mean, other than scooting around the border, and it's probably going to be to Belfast Zoo and back and see nothing else, really.
Yeah, I mean, people forget about the beaches of Derry. I'm always amazed that no one ever talks about the beaches of Derry. You say Derry in the south and they go, oh, Bogside, Bloody Sunday and...
Full shopping centre.
And that's it. And it's funny, you know, things like that are shocking to me. It shocks me that Dublin's greatest, that the greatest tourism spot in Dublin is a brewery. Like, it's quite amazing. And so this is an opportunity as well to advertise Ireland to the world again, and especially Donegal. Now, when I moved to Donegal in 2006, you wouldn't believe the amount of people said, I say, there's this beach outside Dunfanny, and everyone goes, don't tell anyone.
I know.
And now I think that attitude has changed, where you do want people to come to Donegal and see it.
I don't know.
No,
we got an awful lot of hassle when we started talking about where the secret waterfall was.
Yeah, you should. Well, it won't be secret anymore, Greg.
I know.
But you see, what I do is I do start the show with a tour by a guy called Ken Dodds, and he's a Protestant taxi driver. He's based on a taxi driver I met who said, I've never been south.
No.
And this is about 20 years ago. And I said, well, where do you go on your holidays? And he says, I go to Spain. And I said, what, to avoid Catholics? So the whole point is he finally gets the enterprise down to Dublin and finds out how British the South is and how I call it Royal Dublin. Everyone's called the Royal College of Surgeons and the Royal Automobile Club and Royal Irish Academy, the RIA, of which Gerry Adams has also never been a member. And so it's that kind of thing. And I take him through the tour, but then I also take Southern people through the tour of the North to show how amazingly Celtic and Irish and ancient and archaeological, and it's the seat of St. Patrick and all of these things that nobody knows about. And what I love is, you know, we're going to be like a mixed marriage, you know, a bit like Wolfe Tone's parents, a bit like Patrick Pearse's parents. We'll be a mixed marriage between the North and the South. And we get to discover new things about each other that we never knew. And that kind of process of discovery is going to be an awful lot of fun. You know what I mean? So the whole thing should be a lot of fun and looked on positively, you know, because I think that
I actually feel quite excited and enthused about the prospect during this conversation.
Yeah, it's
because it's not really talked about much.
No, and I think people haven't talked about it because they don't want to stoke certain fires. And I'm saying there's not a fire to be stoked. That's an old fire that's died out. What I'm experiencing in the North is a bunch of people, especially kind of alliance voters, middle class Protestants, going, you know something, I think we could do this thing together, and the Southern economy is great, and they seem to have their you-know-whats together, and it's not Rome rule anymore, and Brexit has really disappointed us. And the fact that we have to beg every time for money for Casement Park or money for this or money for that when we could represent ourselves. Remember that when Unionists become part of this place, they'll form 15% of the electorate. So they'll always form a government. They'll always have the centre of power. Remember when Theresa May's government only had they had the Unionists in to make up the numbers.
15 of them.
But they represent 1%. They represent 1% of Britain. They've no real power. And getting the odd billion off them wasn't enough. Yeah. You could have a real stake and real power here. And that's something for anyone to be...
Though, Paddy, even in Donegal now, you know, members of the Protestant community or members of the Orange Order feel underrepresented, sort of hidden, you know. So I think if we were to get that right, and if there's other cultures and religions that would have to be accommodated, don't get me wrong, but if we were to get that right on a national scale, you'd like to see us sort of start getting it right now, if you know what I mean. Because
yes,
I know through doing programs like this and speaking to people and what have you, that people feel that this sort of, it's not a secret life or what have you, but it's not out there, you know what I mean? And I suppose we'd have to get that right on a all island basis.
Well, absolutely. Well, I call it the Dunfanaghy ethos, which is that Dunfanaghy is a marvellous town, obviously from a quite a huge Protestant ethos. It's a beautiful town. There was a great thing where they got together, and like a lot of Donegal towns with a lot of empty spaces and empty shops. And a few people got together and said, "Look, let's fill every place here and turn it into kind of an ideal place."
Yeah.
And it worked. Mm-hmm. And so Dunfanaghy now is a very different thing than the sleepy place I knew. And that comes from that ethos. And I basically like things like the tidy towns in Ireland. I want to turn all of Ireland into a tidy town. I want to turn all of Ireland into Dunfanaghy or Dalkey and make the place nice for everybody. And I think that we can help each other do that. Whatever those kind of elements that have come out in communities. It was pointed out in Dairy Girls the difference between people, but I see nothing wrong with putting a toaster in a cupboard. And I like tray bakes, and in fact, the more tray bakes, the better.
Who's more inclined to put a toaster in a cupboard?
They say Protestants are, but I've never experienced it in my life. I've never seen any of them do it, and I just think that that's just that old rubbish that people come out with. But it was good fun. But what I'm finding is we have way more in common.
Of course we do.
And in fact, if you want to look at representation, it was funny. The Free State did make an effort, before it did become completely subsumed by the church. Our first president, Douglas Hyde, was a Protestant. Right. We had Protestant ministers of state, from Ivan Yates to Heather Humphreys. Our biggest newscaster for 30 years was Brian Dobson. But the funny thing is, because people feel comfortable in the South not talking about the religion, nobody would actually know automatically that Brian Dobson was a Protestant.
No, of course not.
And I went to a mixed school, and this is where I get my ethos from. I went to the school where U2 went, Mount Temple. And of course, U2 are, two Protestants, a Presbyterian and a Catholic. They're literally the United Irishmen of bands. So, but nobody thinks about that because we've gone beyond it. And this is where I'm trying to get us.
I get where you're coming from.
If I look at instances around the world, especially the big one at the moment, they're at 1641. They really are. We're at 1998, but we're beyond that now. We're 25 years ahead. And we have a major opportunity now to build something really great, really phenomenal. And I just find the negativity around it when people bring out, it'll cost this much. Like, I don't think Michael Collins or any of them would turn around and go, "Oh, Jesus, this is going to cost enough. I think we better not do it." Like, the point is, you set a goal and you go, let's really make this work. And I think everybody can get together. And like I say, if we approach it like a mature country, like Switzerland or something like that, we can be that in about 10 years very, very quickly. We have to get rid of one thing, though, Greg.
What's that?
NIMBYism. We have to stop. We have to stop things from progressing. Stopping things.
We do have, but that's a big problem here in Donegal as well as anywhere else. Yeah,
we have to kind of realise that there's a common good. Not that obviously not that we just build things willy nilly.
Is that steeped in our history, or the development of sort of NIMBYism and the fear of things being taken off us, or people encroaching in on us, or
particularly with the Irish, I think, but the fact that we didn't own anything for 800 years, and then all of a sudden you get a patch of land, and that's all that matters. Yeah. And we just have to start getting together and going, look, I mean, because communities are brilliant in Ireland. They really are, and neighbours get on great, and people help each other out. But we just, in terms of general development, where I live in Galway, it's like the houses are quite rich and well off and stuff, but there's no footpaths or streetlights. So, you're kind of taking your life into your hands walking down the road. So it's these things that I think we need to get together and just get back on a Mehel community basis. And that involves all the communities on the island getting together and talking like that. But we can only do that through this amazing united concept. You know what I mean? And that's why I want to I've got 300 images in the show. You'll be blown away by the AI stuff. The music is good. I've got a brand new anthem you're going to love called Oh Hibernia. Don't get offended. You will like it. And then, I bring us right through to the point of where we're so solid as a country, we can start invading other countries, Greg.
Wow.
Yeah. And forming a Pax Hibernia.
Lovely.
But it's a peaceful invasion. We invade through Guinness and good spirits.
What Tatoes, though? Do we take?
Of course, it's the blue and red Tatoes. Right, but I mean, again, negotiations are going to be most severe on those.
Okay, listen. So, I mean, it's going to be a great show. I haven't seen it, but I'm really I'm intrigued by it.
Yeah.
I can't believe it's not Ireland. It's in the Balla Arts Centre, Balla Buffet. It's funny. As your stuff always is, unless you've really dropped off a cliff recently. I presume it's funny.
It's
Okay.
funny.
It's funny.
I
There's
promise
music,
you.
there's imagery.
You will laugh
and
more
everything.
than you laughed in this interview. I got a bit hippie here with
Sorry,
Greg,
were
but
we
Greg
supposed
brings
to
out
do
the serious in you
Were we
guys.
supposed to do a funny interview? Sorry, I didn't realise. I found it quite entertaining.
No, I know, I absolutely. But you're a very deep philosophical thinker, Greg. So
Okay.
you bring that out in me.
Right.
You know what I mean? I won't be
Okay,
that.
this is good.
I won't be that philosophical.
More fun
on
than
Thursday.
what effectively Paddy is saying. It's more entertaining than Gregory's interview might suggest. It might. I called myself Gregory.
I'm
Sorry,
only
that
kidding.
Greg's interview.
I'm only kidding. No, it's because you'll see in the show. It's well written and it's well laid out with a lot of jokes. It's breaking up the stuff, and and we end with a song called "I'm So High," and you will walk out in a high, which I'm really
Brilliant,
excited
okay.
about.
That's the voice of Paddy Cullivan. His show is I Can't Believe It's Not Ireland. It's in the beautiful Balla Arts Centre, Balla Buffet. It's on the 18th of July. So if you want to get your tickets, you know what we do here, lastminute.com. Don't be one of those. Get your tickets nice and early. Call the box office. Well, it's already kind of late. But call the box office at the Balla Arts Centre and they will sort you out.
Or go to paddycullivan.com
You
and
could
the
also
link is
do that.
there.
Yeah, all right.
And of course, and to all my other shows. Because I'm always be selling, Greg. You know?
Yeah, of course you have to. But things are better. But for live performers like yourself, it was tough for a while. Things are in a better position now, are they?
Yeah, although, Taylor Swift and Bruce Springsteen need to lay off for a
Back
while.
off,
They
yeah.
need to back off a bit so that the artists like us can make a bit of money.
But I'm not going to drag you into another serious conversation. But it is, the people in the festival sector are struggling as well.
They're
because
charging so much.
Yeah.
Some of these individual artists are charging so much that people will go, well, I'll go to one gig this 3
That's
months.
it, exactly. That's my holiday almost.
And that's it. And
by the
so,
time you book accommodation in Dublin.
Yeah, so I always say support your local theatre,
for
support
sure.
the Ballard, because the Ballard's an incredible thing to have. You know what I mean? And it's a wonderfully run by Connor, and I just think, go to as many events in there as you can. Taylor will survive without you. You can watch her on your HD TV, but support your local artists as much as you want to support Bruce.
And if you're going to
Taylor.
go to one show this year,
it's got to be. I can't believe it's not Ireland because
All right.
it will blow you away.
On the 18th of July, and it is great fun, and always entertaining. Paddy, thank you so very much indeed.
Thank you, Greg.
Back with more shortly. Okay.